Calling this meeting to adjourn. This is a special called meeting. During the public comments period of the meeting, all questions and statements should be, from the public, should be directed to myself. If you wish to speak, raise your hand and I will recognize you. Please approach the podium and state your name and address. In order to allow an opportunity for everyone, each person speaks for 5 minutes. And first, I'll ask if there are any questions from the board. And if not, then I'll ask the applicant to come forward and, oh yes, after Rebecca gives a synopsis of the application.
Item A under new business, application number CERD 24-001074. Applicant Cheatham Fletcher Scott Architects and Designers, represented by Cameron Scott, is requesting approval to construct a mixed-use building on 3 adjacent parcels, including 133 and 141 Newberry Street Northwest. Tax map parcel 121-21-02-001, 002, and 003. The proposed 3-story building will be approximately 36,000 square feet. The second and third floors will be leased to the Savannah River National Lab for office space, while the first floor will consist of a conference space. A green space and 39 parking spaces are also proposed for this new facility. An approximately 4 to 5 foot masonry wall is proposed to be constructed surrounding the proposed parking area. This wall will screen the parking lot from the terrace area and block headlights from the townhomes without blocking their views completely. While the applicants are still deliberating the possibility of another option, they are currently proposing a bronze or dark bronze color for the windows and storefront. The style and grid pattern of each window will be as proposed in the elevations and pages 16 and 33 of Exhibit A. The applicants have made various changes to their design based on comments received from the board at the March 28, 2024 special called work session. A list of these changes have been provided by the applicants to clearly indicate how the proposal has been amended since then. Additionally, City CMO staff and the Historic Aiken Foundation president worked with the applicants' representatives to produce an analysis of the proposed project based on the old Aiken design guidelines. This document explains how the applicants aimed to be compliant with the guidelines as they prepared their proposal. 131 and 133 and 141 Newberry Street Northwest, as well as the adjacent unaddressed parcel, are all currently vacant lots located in the Old Aiken Overlay District and are zoned downtown business.
Okay, I'm Cam Scott with Cheatham Fletcher Scott Architects.
Richard Fletcher, Cheatham Fletcher Scott. We have with us tonight our partner, Tazara Harper. We have part of our team, Tilden Hildebrandt, and Susan Kleinbub is our landscape designer. And so I don't know.
Could you give your address, please?
Pardon me?
Could you give your address, please?
I live at 1 Shadowmore Court in North Augusta. My office is at 420 8th Street in Augusta.
Thank you.
Certainly. So when we met previously, we went through several of these images. This one was showing the scale of the proposed building in context of surrounding buildings. The proposed building being in a light blue color and showing lines denoting 3 stories. We feel like that there are buildings within the block and nearby that are similar in scale. The Mavon building in particular is slightly higher, a foot or two maybe higher than what we're proposing. The church across the street, St. John, is, while it might not be as high, the overall mass of it is fairly significant, as is the collection of storefronts that wrap Richland and Lawrence. Let's see, let's go to the next slide there. This, there's a few changes since the last time you saw this. The red color doesn't really show up as pavers on this image, but that is denoting some sort of paver that would define the main entrance on Newberry, as well as the parking lot entrance there next to the parking spaces. And we would like to use these pavers in the terrace area. There's a little bit of a grassed area there in that terrace courtyard area that we've now connected to the green space in the back. That's something that's sort of a new idea that you didn't see last time. We've introduced a wall between the parking lot and the court area. It would be high enough so that if you're having an event on the terrace, you wouldn't be able to see the fronts of cars parked along there. We've had several meetings with some nice folks that live in the townhomes next door. And it's been a bit of a challenge to figure out how to provide visual security for them without it blocking their views. And but we think we've arrived at a good solution. Oh, thank you so much. Now I'll be dangerous. Uh-oh. Truer words were never spoken. What did I do that?
Sure, you might want to go back to this one.
There it is. All right, so it's the red button, is that correct? Yeah, okay, the red button. Okay, let's move back to the other. Oh, I guess I can do that too.
Oh, go back.
Yeah. Yeah, so what we have here are segments of brick wall interrupted by a space of 10 feet. This is a Susan Kleinbub invention. And I think, did you want to speak to this? Okay. Yeah, okay, cool.
Well, as Susan Kleinbub, and I worked with Richard and Cam on this, as well as with the townhomes residents, to come up with a solution that addressed their their concerns about the cars, headlights, and having some sort of buffer between the back of the townhomes and and this is their property line. We have about 8 feet from the the property line to the curb. So we came up with this section of wall that, as Richard mentioned, would be high enough to block car lights, but also low enough to see over. So it didn't wall them in, so to speak. But because this is a southwest exposure here, it was really necessary to add some shade trees along this area to be able to provide some much needed shade on the parking lot. So we divided the wall sections so that we could have these spaces, these 10-foot spaces between the wall sections for street trees, which street trees in that they have a tall canopy and allow for traffic, parking and whatnot underneath them. So that was, I feel like, a good solution. In talking to the townhome residents, it seemed to appease them in that it gave them the privacy that they needed and allowed them access. We kind of are giving up about 5 feet from the property line to the wall, giving them 5 feet in order to allow them maintenance access for their townhomes, as well as to be able to allow the property owner to maintain the backside of the wall as well. So we did continue the wall over across here, and then it ties in with another section of wall that would be the wall that would have the building sign on it.
Monument sign.
Monument sign.
Right. Any comment about, did I just do this something again? These trees here?
So in keeping with this is a lovely courtyard space and sort of an expanded garden area, really. The wall continues across this side in order to make this parking lot less visible from inside the building and give this space a little more of a garden feel, really. So this is more, shade trees, ornamental shade trees along the wall to provide some much-needed shade. Sun's coming from here, late afternoon, cooling this space down. Nice grass area, just to keep it nice and green. And then in these spaces around, it would be a combination of shrubs and flowering things, and I haven't even set loose on that yet. But that would be a lovely garden in there. We're not trying to rival Hopelands, but we would use some of the same plantings that you would see in our parkways to add seasonal color and make it a really nice garden space for this 3-story building.
Are you proposing any street trees?
The street trees here, we have that other.
I think, let's go to the next image.
There you go.
So, yeah, here we have, this is the grass space between the curb and the sidewalk. We would put in street trees along this area. We'll be losing, here's an existing Chinese elm that I'm hoping we can keep. So this could be the same. They're sort of continuous along this downtown area, these Chinese elms, which make a nice street tree. And then this would be just a nice green lush planting between the sidewalk and the building, just to soften and enhance that whole experience as you're walking down the sidewalk or entering into the building from the curb area. And then a buffer planting all the way around the perimeter, just to keep it nice and green in that space.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's landscape design. We showed this before. You've seen the foundation plan. There it is again. And first floor plan, should be fairly familiar with that at this point. Second floor, third floor, and the roof. One change I think we noted in the list that we gave you about things that we changed since the last go around. We reoriented these large mechanical units so that we could put them parallel to the length of the building towards the middle of the roof, making it very, very unlikely that if you are on the ground anywhere in downtown Aiken, you could ever see these. That's, we feel very confident that that is the case. The model that we showed you images of has those units on the roof. They just don't show up because of the angles, but okay. Now, also on the list of things that we changed, and by the way, thanks to the various people who made design recommendations, in particular the idea that, well, in old Aiken, we had a lot of brick cornices. Some may recall before we proposed an FRP, fiberglass reinforced polymer cornice, which looks like wood when it's painted. It really does, I promise. It looks good and traditional. But we drove around using our Google Street View tool and took a bunch of pictures of downtown buildings. And it provided those for you too. But they were great inspiration because it's true, there are a lot of brick cornices in downtown Aiken. So our design now has a brick cornice that projects about 8 or 9 inches at the top. And it'll have corbels or medallion type of an expression. It'll be in keeping with a lot of the brick cornices you see downtown. Another very significant change is, you may recall that we were proposing that, well, the first floor needs to have storefront. Downtown buildings have storefront, and what if in the future we need to kind of adjust and do something different? We kind of like them, but the inspiration that we found, several buildings had arches like this on the first floor, and we borrowed that. Not ashamed to admit it, and we just like the rhythm of it, the scale of it. It feels more like old Aiken than the storefront does, and so we added those. Someone, I don't remember exactly who it was, expressed concern that a certain balustrade and portico looked sort of residential. I don't remember who that was, but we didn't take it to heart too much, but we went back and started scratching our heads about what we might do instead of this balustrade and portico. And we just made a really simple statement here. It's an arch in the center of the building that says, here's the entry, come on in. And this is a very traditional way to do that. So thanks for whoever it was that noted that. The panels to the left and right, one's a stairwell, one's some service space or something to the right. Those we felt like were a little large just to be big plain surfaces, and so we recessed some panels there and put arches over the top of them to sort of reduce the scale of those a little bit. Between the third-story windows and the second-story windows, we added recessed panels again to try to break up the mass of the brick surface. So those are changes. Over the windows, we found a lot of downtown buildings have arched windows, a lot of arched windows. There may be more arched windows than not. And so we naturally had to have arched windows. We used jack arches on the second floor. On the third floor, those are a combination of arching rowlocks capped by an arching and projecting header course. You can find that detail over on Lawrence Street. And so we think this is about as authentic Aiken as we could possibly get. And we're very excited about the changes that we made and very appreciative of the suggestions that we received. So next slide. Looking to the north on Newberry, this, oh man, I did it again. I'm gonna have to just put this pointer down and use this other one's. Okay. So we're continuing those same windows from the Newberry facade, wrapping around the side because they will be somewhat visible looking north on Newberry. But in the courtyard area, we're using a much larger two-story opening to bring more natural light into the workspaces. And good news is that does not take away at all from the historic character of the front of the building, and provide some what will certainly be much appreciated natural light inside the workspace. One other key change that you'll see in this elevation is before our drawing showed a metal canopy system here, which was really, in retrospect, it felt more like it belonged in maybe a public school than on a fine office and multi-mixed-use building downtown Aiken. So we've used the same masonry, same brick that we're using on the remainder of the building to create these columns and that bit of wall there. Let's go to the next slide. This is looking, if we were in the Maybaum building parking lot, looking east, this is what you would see there. Again, some more of these two-story windows that bring a lot of natural light into the space. My partner Cam did tell me, Richard, these windows need to have 9 parts, not 6, so that they're more compatible, and he's right. And somehow, I apologize, I did not make that correction, but we will. Okay, and from the north, this is Mr. Buzz Rich will have a nice, lovely view of this elevation from his office. And more two-story windows there. This was a subject of discussion, I remember last time, when we showed our very flat front elevation that had no sense of perspective about it at all. That looked like it was just right on the street, but in reality, it is set back, and then when we look at the renderings, make sure we take a look at that. Here's the detail of the brick cornice. We met with Josh Stewart and talked about a lot of things to do with this building, but this was one in particular that I was concerned with. How do we make sure this brick cornice on a 4-inch face brick situation doesn't want to fall off the building? So we have a little homework to do on that, but we're going to make it structurally sound, I promise. There's a detail of the arched entryway, and so now we're using cast stone here and cast stone here. That's the only cast stone on the building, whereas before I think we had some lintels, perhaps some other details, but so we really simplified that. Let's go to the next slide. There. So now we're on Barnwell, looking towards the south and west. This is what we were just talking about, this element. This cornice is supposed to wrap in other renderings that we have. It does, but this was to provide access to the roof for maintenance folks. We have mechanical equipment up there. We're in a part of town where thankfully there are a lot of trees growing, and we would expect leaves and pine straw to accumulate and need to be cleaned off regularly. We would rather have maintenance people walking out of a door onto the roof rather than climbing up a ladder. So that's why it does it. But you'll see how far back from the street it's set, and we think that works pretty well. Next. Another similar view, moving a little farther down Newberry. And looking from the parkway across, we later, Cam observed, well, Richard, your really nice arched entrance is not even showing up here in this rendering. So we did fix that in a later version, but unfortunately it didn't get submitted to you that way. But next. Looking north on Newberry, here's the wall that we're proposing for the neighbors in the sign panel. Street trees. That's good. Next slide. This is the courtyard area, the wall that we described earlier, separating the terrace court area from the parking. And beautiful landscaping, courtesy of Susan Kleinbub. It'll be a beautiful space to be in. similar view to what we've already seen. This was looking north on the southbound lane of Newberry. Just, there's so much plant material here, you'll just get a glimpse of the building down the street.
That's Peace Loop building, that's the massing of Peace Loop.
Right.
On that corner.
And that's actually not rendered quite right because there is no grass strip there. That concrete goes right up to the edge of the building. All of the openings in the exterior of the building detailed here. This is the brick that we propose to use. Just can't see a red common on this building. This is an actual sample of it.
Does anybody want to see that close up?
Yeah, this is called Chicago Used is the name of that, from Cherokee Brick. We weren't happy with the samples we got for the lighter colored brick, and so at some point we're going to build a sample panel once we get underway with construction, and we'd be delighted to have everybody come out and weigh in on that. But we're still searching for the right brick for that white. What else, Cam? Anything else you want to comment on?
Just the wall lantern, it was, I think there was some comments, maybe not from this group, from other groups, about our lanterns were a little bit, there's a word to use, but I won't use it again. It was just too traditional, I guess, so we're proposing a maybe more modern light fixture. This one kind of there in the center. It'll be on that facade.
And the renderings did incorporate more of this style this time around. So, okay, next slide.
This is just showing typical potential parking spaces around the building. Obviously, we have 39 on our site. We have 33 down Newberry. Other spots that are, I think, owned by Aiken in the center off of Richland. There's 7 there, 4 in there. And,
Excuse me. You're not being picked up on the microphone,
sorry.
so it'd be better if you go to the microphone and speak.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. This is just showing all the potential areas for parking for the building, and so there's just, it's been designated, all these areas, and we feel like around the building, on the parkway, in the streets, that we will end up with enough parking spaces for this building.
These were some of the inspiration photos that we selected, showing brick cornices, some panel work, brick panel work, more brick cornices. In this case, they actually painted the cornice white, which is kind of interesting. Segmental top windows, arched windows, segment top windows, brick cornice. That one looks really old. I mentioned the inspiration about arched openings on the first floor. There's one good example of that. More brick cornice, arched windows. A lot of good inspiration in downtown Aiken. Here's the projecting courses that we talked about over these segment top windows. There's some rusticated base. That's a great example of what we were trying to accomplish with the first floor being of a different material than the upper floors. Brick cornice, more brick cornice, segment top windows. I sense a theme here. Segment top windows, brick cornice. This was, we had 2 windows put together, a double sash, and so here's this is a historic building with a triple sash, which was kind of nice to know that exists in Aiken. So we didn't feel too bad about doing a double window. segment top, arch top, and this one has that nice rhythm of these arches that we embraced and incorporated into the design. More projecting brick cornices. And this, we just threw this in because the guidelines don't really address a situation like this, but I thought this has got to be the coolest building in Aiken. That streamlined, modern. This is a diamond right here. It really is. That would be a shame. Double windows, not a brick cornice, but anyway, double windows. And here we go again with the arched windows on the first floor. Brick cornice just down the street on the Peace Lutheran building. And back to the site.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board or comments?
Yeah, I got a comment. I didn't say much in the work session, but I studied this building. As a builder myself, I really didn't find any deficiencies. The building was well planned and well thought out. And of course, my opinion does not represent that of the board. It's just an individual opinion, but it was well thought out.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Very much.
And I think you deserve a lot of credit for what you've done, because I've just pulled the old drawings from not that long ago, and it's really wonderful what you've done.
Thank you.
In terms of, with some intention on it. My only question, you mentioned that you were going to change, Cam had said, to do 9 on instead of 6, but
Yes.
in all the drawings that I saw today, they're all 6, so I just,
It's the windows in the back.
so all of them?
Go back to that one.
It's not the ones that you see from the street.
Okay,
but
that's what
ones
I
on the
wasn't sure.
On the courtyard side,
Okay,
in fact, in this particular version, these are not equal.
Right.
In the detail, these are all the same size lights within that opening.
Right.
But down here, we just have 6 and there's 9 on top. So we're going to tweak that a little bit.
only on the back
Won't
side.
show from the
Okay.
Only
street.
on the back.
That's what I was just checking, because I was,
Thank you.
but thank you, because the work that you did from the last time is commendable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you, we appreciate when we give feedback and public gave feedback. You took it to heart, and it really makes a difference. Especially, I think one of the things that you did, I know this is a small thing, but moving the HVAC systems back so that they're not visible, takes that apartment complex look away from it, and the entrance really draws your attention to a welcoming environment, like you said, and the attention to detail on the brickwork is wonderful. And I want to congratulate you and your firm for your recent award that you got in Georgia for historic preservation. I think, what was it, you were one of, 30 or 35 different applications?
Right.
For the entire state of Georgia?
Yep.
So congratulations on that, and glad to see you put some of that effort into this too, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Any comments from the public? Yes?
Hi, Linda Johnson, 515 Parkside Drive. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Aiken Foundation Board. So I'll start by saying that when we reviewed this, we had the starting point. We presume it's going to be on Newberry Street. You know, it's not in our scope to decide where a building goes or how it's used. So we're looking at the design. First of all, we very much appreciate all the work that the architects did. You can tell that they've tried very hard to incorporate people's comments from last time. They've done a lot to comply with the old Aiken design guidelines and create a new building that complements the historic district without pretending to be an old building. And that's a really important concept in preservation. You're not trying to create a false sense of history. Overall, half believes that the design meets the guidelines established for the Old Aiken overlay, both generally and for new large footprint buildings. Per the guidelines, it's not a copy of a specific historic style, but it incorporates many architectural features that are found in downtown Aiken. I think we heard several of those already when they were pointing them out. It's not a random collection of architectural details, but a cohesive and disciplined selection of subtle classical features that are used to meet the guidelines and create a suitable new civic building. So a few specific items. There was a lot of discussion in the work session about the setback. The proposed building is going to be set back 6 feet from the sidewalk, and we all know that in the guidelines it talks about this wall of buildings, which is what you see on Lawrence. You don't have a wall of buildings on this street. You have a mix of everything from 0 feet to 20 feet. And so having a setback of 6 feet tries to be harmonious within that range. And I will point out, I know the St. John's Faith Center across the street is set well back so that they can have the playground between the building and the street itself, but their big building immediately to the south is set almost on the sidewalk. At 3 stories, the proposed building is 1 story higher than the buildings on either side and about 12 feet higher, but it is shorter than the Maybon building behind it, which is interesting, and has about the same mass as that. It's a little bit higher than the St. John's Faith Center across the street and about the same mass. So overall, it seems that in terms of the height guidelines and mass, it fits on that block. It has comparable elements on that block. So we presume that the front dimensions are going to stay the same. I know there was discussion about changing the footprint again, but assuming the front facade constraints stay the same, we understand the constraints of the site and the user needs. Given that, the rusticated ground floor and the projecting central pavilion and flanking bays and the various architectural features that give shadowing provide enough vertical and horizontal relief that they reduce the apparent size as recommended in section 3.2.2. It's similar to the Bank of Western Carolina, which is actually used as a model in the guidelines. Kind of frighteningly looks like that. Per section 3.2.5, and this is a very important point, it talks about using high quality natural materials that are typically found in Aiken historic buildings. This is really important for the front facade. In particular, brick should be used as the primary building material, both for the facade and for the defining architectural features. So a question for the architects: in the materials list on page 2 of the COA application, materials like fiberglass and aluminum coping were listed. We assume that those aren't for the front, that they're for the sides and back. Okay.
We're happy to address it if you'd like.
Please. Yeah, the materials were kind of important to us because we've made a good transition to more natural materials. I want to make sure. So tell me about the coping.
So the aluminum coping is the cap on top of the parapet. Traditionally, that would have been stone, brick, sometimes tile, even terracotta tile. But the problem with those materials, twofold. One, we don't have a solid masonry wall. We have a metal framed wall, and we don't want to put a solid piece of stone on top of that. Two, those old style materials are prone to leak, and we don't want this building to leak. So it would be, what you would see from the ground is about a 4-inch piece of that coping. And it would be a similar color. Probably we would match the window finish, which is a bronze or a dark bronze. And what was the other concern?
The fiberglass.
Okay, that's gone. That, we talked about, the change from the, fiberglass reinforced
Okay.
polymer
Okay.
cornice to a
Okay.
brick cornice.
Okay, it was still on the materials list, so we just wanted to confirm that. So, the revised design of the building's entrance and those large arched windows, which we do find downtown quite a bit, create a nice arcade effect. They are more welcoming to pedestrians, which isn't a minor thing. I mean, that's in the guidelines. This is a downtown. It needs to be inviting. The front entryway design is actually a lot like the Hotel Aiken. One thing, and this is not really a design suggestion, I don't know if it's a building management suggestion, it still would be nice if there were something immediately inside the building, you know, the first side room or something, that the public had access to, a reason to be able to go into that building. Because if there is no reason to go in, you won't get pedestrians walking past there. So again, that's not a design thing, and it's really not our business, but it would make the building more inviting. So this is something perhaps for the city. The building includes a lot of classical architectural features, such as the gauged brick jack arches and blind panels and cornice styles found in Aiken.
Your time is up.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you have a lot more?
I have one more really important thing.
Okay.
The proposed monument sign. Now, that was still showing up on some of the diagrams. Is that still there? It's still there. Okay, that is a little bit of a problem. Monument signs aren't a feature of Aiken's original historic district, even for civic buildings, and rather signs were placed on the buildings themselves, and that you see that at the theater, where the words for the theater are on the side of the theater. There's not some big monument sign in front. So that is an issue. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Louise?
Good evening, Louis Rinaldini, 638 Magnolia Street, and I am on the board of the Historic Aiken Foundation, but I thought I would just speak tonight more from the point of view of giving some context as to how, for the public to understand on record, how to handle a new building in a historic district. So one of the key things that were addressed in both the federal and the state preservation laws, which then tumble down to the municipal level here in Aiken, is that new buildings in a historic district are treated in a much more permissive way, because you want to encourage people to be able to build what they need to build and what they want to build, provided that it remains and is doesn't detract from the integrity of the rest of the historic district around it. Everything that we do with preservation infringes on property owners' rights, and so you want to infringe as little as possible while maintaining the benefits of the district, and that's why the new buildings are meant to be, the regulation for new buildings is meant to be permissive, and one of the key, if you want to summarize the key ways to measure it, is that it doesn't detract from the integrity of the rest of the district. And on a sort of prescriptive way, it does, our guidelines in Aiken do suggest that you incorporate elements of historic architecture around it, but not try to mimic a historic building and create something modern. So I think it's important for the public to know a much more modern looking building could have been approved. And a number of these features that are present in this building are really above and beyond what a minimum would be required to be approved. So we're very grateful to the owners of the building and to the potential tenants of the building, and especially to the architects, for having given us something which is really, in my opinion, above and beyond what needs to be done from the point of view of the permissive work that would be allowed. I think Linda addressed the issue of the setback from the sidewalk, and I think the other big remaining point here is the 3 stories. It's important to understand that in our guidelines, there's a recommendation that buildings in this area should be a minimum of 2 stories. So the choice is 2 or 3, really, because when we look at the context of the rest of downtown Aiken, a 4-story building would probably be out of context. So you're kind of down to 2 or 3, and in a permissive environment for a new building with owner and tenant who want a program that has 36,000 square feet, it would be hard to deny them a 3-story building. So I think, any effort to minimize the massing of the building would be more of a cosmetic or sort of staging kind of approach. And I think what they've done with the design of the exterior, what the architects have done with the design of the exterior, really accomplishes that without having to go to any kind of artificial lengths of pushing it. So, I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 years reading the guidelines and actually consulting with experts to try to understand how they get applied and so on. And I think it's important for the public to understand. And as the last piece of it, I've got to tell you the difference between how we're approaching this building and other episodes in our past is, to me, spectacularly improved. We really are, as a collective group, looking at guidelines, trying to do good planning, good design, good buildings, and good preservation, all of which is going to make Aiken just a much better place and make us much happier to come to these meetings to see good things and work together in that effort. So thank you all, and thank you, and thanks to the Aiken Corporation and the city and SRNL for being really receptive to doing this the right way. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, Design Review Board, Jacob Ellis, 3 Short Court. I'd like to start out by saying at the last special called Design Review Board meeting, I critiqued this design very harshly. I absolutely hated it upon first review. I calmed down, I went home, I studied it, I pored over it. I realized I was wrong. The first design was excellent, and now this second design is even better than the first design. It fits in with Aiken excellently. Where my issue lies, though, is it is supposed to employ or have parking spaces for enough of 100 employees. The parking lot fits only 39 employees. We have seen on the views from tonight adequate parking from around different areas, one of which being the old public safety building on Lawrence Street, which was written off the list as a possible site for this proposed building. We were told it was too far away, and now it's fine for parking. They have to walk from the Newberry site back to their car at public safety, which is a 12-minute walk according to Google. If someone on their lunch break leaves something in their car, they have to walk 12 minutes to the public safety building, then 12 minutes back to the Newberry site. That's almost a 30-minute walk. That's half of your lunch break. That makes no sense. Where it does make sense to have this building, though, is the old hospital site. According to Google, the hospital site is 13-minute walk from the old hospital to the heart of downtown. You have ample parking. You don't have to go back and forth from several different blocks. I feel we should relook at the location and not the design, because the design is excellent. Thank you very much.
Rana? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Ann Kaiser, and I have a house that if I stood on the front porch and leaned, it's on Edgefield Avenue, and leaned a little bit to the right, I would be able to see this building. I don't feel that it fits the scale. I don't think the scale of the building fits the neighborhood. And that's all I need to say. Thank you very much for taking public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Harrison Howell, 1033 Hayne Avenue, Southwest. I hate to bring it up again, but the monument sign, if we could go to Exhibit A, page 15. Originally, in the first reading, I think it was 12 feet wide, and now it's just a little bit bigger. At 12 feet, I was a little bit iffy on it. At 16 feet, I think it's just too big. That's kind of small, but it is a little bigger if you zoom in. If you look around Aiken, so 146 Lawrence Street, it's the Berkshire Hathaway building. That has a monument sign, but it's more square. If you go to, if you're on Richland between, sorry, this is hard to do off the top of your head, Newberry and Park, there's that Aiken sign. Again, it's more square shaped. It's probably like 4 feet high max. The closest sign I can think of off the top of my head would be the First Citizens Bank sign, and that would be at 125 Park Avenue. That sign is particularly egregious, I think, because it's running perpendicular to the road, so it's really designed for cars to see as they drive past, and the whole point of these guidelines is to make it pedestrian friendly. So I like that, my understanding right now, that the monument sign is going to be parallel to the walkway or the street. I just think that maybe 16 feet long is maybe a little bit too long. I know we could probably reach out to SRNL. They have a spec sheet of all their different designs. I used to work out there, so you could probably find something not quite that scale that would be easy to size appropriately. But overall, I'm really happy with the building. I think the design is great, and I am excited to see a building go up there. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Don Moniak. I live north of Aiken. I want to start by saying that, first of all, it was a work session before here that lasted a half hour. There's quite a few points raised that have not been reintroduced into the public record during this regular meeting, and they should be. You know, I don't understand why this happens over and over again at the county level and the city level, where matters are discussed outside regular meetings that are not shared during the regular meetings. One of the statements, for example, is we need to be more careful about how we handle downtown Aiken. When we get something like this, we need clarification on how we get there. Who is the owner? There's 2 owners listed, nobody is signed for it. Who's actually the applicant? There was discussion about whether it should be neighborhood commercial, whether it should be downtown commercial. And so I'm going to start from there to ask a legal question that Mr. Hawley, if you call on Mr. Hawley at the end of this, maybe you can answer it, because he's not supposed to interject. He's supposed to be called upon. Is that correct? Like they do at the county level? Anyway, no, don't. At the end, I want to ask, who is the applicant? Is it the city of Aiken? Why is the design firm the applicant? If this was to be appealed, who would they appeal it to? And how would that work if the city of Aiken's the owner? The city of Aiken is, the design review board is a subset of the city of Aiken. Would somebody be suing the city? Would the city be suing the design review board if the design review board was to turn down this application? So it should be answered. Who is the applicant? Who is the owner? That was raised in the work session. It should be answered. Issue of appropriateness, I'm going to start with parking. Parking was not discussed at all, hasn't been discussed at all, but it's part of the old Aiken Design Guidelines, Section 21, page 11. It hasn't been discussed at all. This parking scheme is very odd, to put it mildly. To be proposing parking at an active fire station is just not a good idea. To have parking scattered all over town without any kind of plan on how it's going to be designated and how the people who are visiting is not a good idea. And to not know how many people are going to be there at any given time, what the maximum occupancy is going to be, and how that parking is going to be arranged is not a good idea. You haven't addressed parking at all. This site is going to have an impact on parking, and a lot of the numbers just don't add up. Like, how do you get 82 spots around public safety, the old public safety building? So, also, in terms of appropriateness, there is that monument sign. And there's a security issue there, too. Why do you want to... Savannah River National Laboratory is an institution of the Department of Energy. Department of Energy wholly owns the Savannah River National Laboratory, all the facilities, all the buildings. The Patel Savannah River Alliance is the contractor. That needs to be understood. It also needs to be understood, whether people like it or not, that the National Lab, its primary mission is weapons related, whether it means cleanup or tritium production or in the future plutonium pit production, it is related. That in itself raises a lot of security concerns. In other parts of the world, nuclear nonproliferation involves assassinations of scientists. It doesn't here yet, but we don't know what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years. That monument sign, if you have a monument sign or whether you put it up on the wall, it should be the universities. You should have a logo for Clemson, USC, SC State, and USC Aiken, because, as Ms. Morgan pointed out during the work session, there has been a procedure to get to this point. This board should understand that this building is part of a $120 million program called the Workforce Development aspect. It's a workforce development program funded by the state of South Carolina to benefit the Savannah River National Laboratory as a means of involving the 3 universities in the contract. That should be understood. This is part of a much larger program. And since the universities are really funding this building and funding this program because they're the subcontractors, their names should be up on the wall, and that would draw less attention to the building. Protesters are less likely to show up. And DOE security understands this. That's probably why they didn't put it right downtown. In addition to the fact that when you're asking earlier about how this came about, this 36,000 square feet, I'm going to go 30 more seconds, okay?
All right.
How did it come about this 36,000 square feet? It was originally 45,000 square feet because it was part of Project Pascalis, and that section was put aside. Because Warnicki cleaners could not be moved, they had to reduce it to 36,000 square feet, and then they applied that 36,000 square feet over to here. So just to summarize, you need to address parking. The monument sign is totally inappropriate, and this board has not decided whether it should be neighborhood commercial or should be downtown commercial. That was decided by city employees, it appears. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other comments? Yes.
Good evening. Diane Johnston, 4023 Wood Valley Drive in Aiken. I just want to say thank you for providing us the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you to the architects. I think they've done a wonderful job. I think I'm going to come at it from a slightly different aspect. It's nice to see that we are trying to support some of the small businesses in this community. I come from a family that has multiple small businesses, and they are very important. They employ an awful lot of people, and I think it's very vital to a downtown to be able to support those small businesses. So it's very nice to see that we continue in the city to look at opportunities to support those businesses, ways to bring people downtown. It's disappointing when you have been here for a long time and you see so many of the businesses on Lawrence Street and in the downtown area that come in, operate for a couple of years, and then end up closing their doors. So I think it's wonderful that we are trying to bring folks downtown to see the Savannah River National Lab, which is a very prestigious institution. There are very few of them around this country. They employ very high-wage and high-level employees that will be able to spend a lot of money down there. So I do want to thank you for that. I think it's a wonderful project. I love to see the architecture. I think it fits in very well with the community itself. And I think it's been thought out very carefully. So I just want to thank you for looking at this and for providing us the opportunity for the input. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments from the board?
I got a comment. I originally did think of the parking situation, but I'm obviously the youngest one on the board, right? So that means that I challenge Aikenites, and myself included, if we're going to develop downtown, we do it in such a way that we grow into the city, right? We don't want things such as a huge building such as our sister town, Greenville, or Charlotte or Atlanta. We want to keep the Aiken feel. So Jacob, I challenge you, I'm challenging myself for that 12-minute walk, as Aiken has supported small businesses in the past and they continue to support small businesses, that we challenge other people to open businesses so that 12-minute walk doesn't seem that long. So you have things to do when you're going to your car. Maybe a comical remark, but I also did work at the Savannah River plant in Savannah River Tritium Enterprise, and 12 minutes in the nuclear world is not 12 minutes in the actual world. So, I thought the architects did did a great job with the building, and it was well thought out, even from a builder, general contractor, and a developer standpoint. So I challenge all of us to get on the same page, unite, and support those small or larger businesses that's coming downtown.
Thank you. I would like to say, and people heard it in the work session, I feel like the massing doesn't suit the site and there could have been another solution. But I also feel like the building detailing has improved tremendously from what you proposed before, including the entrance, which I think is really simplistic but quality. And if I could just ask, do you have to do bronze windows? They remind me of the 1980s, but is it possible to do black or white or?
We considered the white, but in looking at the brick that we have, we feel like the white is just too harsh. We feel like the bronze goes better with the brick, and as is stated earlier, we don't want this building to mimic old buildings. We want it to stand on its own. So we feel like the bronze works well with all our materials we have going on. I can't say that I would be care for black, tell you the truth. And white's I just feel like the white's too harsh.
And the glass won't be tinted. Will it be tinted? Will the glass be tinted?
It will have a slight greenish tint, and that helps with the solar heat gain on the building instead of just clear glass. Clear glass is not going to have as good a solar heat coefficient, and so it will have a slight green tint to it, but it's not going to be reflective. It's going to have it's insulated glass, 1-inch insulated glass. We have to meet an energy code too.
Right.
And so
it'll be
clear
low
glass
E.
will not meet the energy code.
Right. Well, low E.
It's a low E.
Can
It's a
be
low E
clear.
glass, but even a low E clear glass won't meet the energy code. So I've done the
triple glaze.
I've been turned down with clear low E glass, so it will have a slight tint to it.
It's always good to have. I mean, glazing, if it's not transparent, is really not glazing. So. Do you know what I mean? From somebody walking down the street. If you can't see inside the building, it's not really glass.
Oh, you will be able to see inside the building.
We don't like reflective glass.
Yeah.
It will not be reflective, but I have two things. One, I'm here to present the alternative viewpoint from the interior designer who loves the idea of black window frames and doors. So,
we have these debates. We have these internal debates in our office,
So
and
we'll-
sometimes we agree. Sometimes we don't.
we'll have lunch and hash it out. And the second thing I wanted to say is regarding the monument sign. At first, it was simply an extension of the wall.
Right.
We thought of it as like a wall. It's sort of screening the cars that will be parked behind it. But we're open to put whatever company logos on it that we feel that our client feels is appropriate, and in whatever size those logos might be. So that's we think a pretty small detail that we're wide open for discussion on. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, do you have a question? Oh, it's too late unless we reopen public comment.
No, I'm perfect.
You all right?
I was just gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Madam Chairman.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about the arbitraris residence over there, and I think it's appropriate that we ask Miss Rebecca to read this letter that we received from one of their residents over there, just to get another perspective.
So this is Exhibit J, which is also available outside council chambers. An email from Miss Betty and Mr. Jeff Ross. It states, "Good afternoon. We are unable to attend tonight's DRB session. However, we want to publicly confirm our support for this project. As our potential new neighbors, the design team has been very solicitous of our concerns with the proposed construction. We wholeheartedly support the project moving forward and anticipate that the DRB will agree that this project is aligned with the downtown development goals and plans and will become an asset to the community. Thank you."
Thank you. And I just thought that was important because of the very simple but very positive comments that made in it. It encapsulates a lot of the things, but it speaks more to our architectural group that they not only tried to take into consideration the things that are around them, but they were considerate of the neighborhood and the neighbors, and I think that's so important. So thank you for that.
Madam Chair Lady, I don't want to interrupt any discussion that the board members have, but I was just going to cover a couple of the exhibits and a couple of just respond to some questions that are relevant, or at least possibly relevant. The record, it will include the the renderings of the building that were presented at the work session and passed around to the people who attended the work session. That'll be part of the exhibits. And also retaining the brick samples as an exhibit also. Is there anything else, Rebecca, that you can think of that we haven't covered?
No, those two additional exhibits as well as Exhibit J, which I just read for you all.
Okay, all right. Secondly, the area where this, of Newberry Street where this building may be erected is legally downtown commercial. There's no question about that. The board looked at page 2 of the downtown design guidelines, which clearly show this block of Newberry is downtown commercial. Also by ordinance, the downtown zone in which this building may be located or will be located if approved is exempt from off-street parking requirements. There are no parking requirements whatsoever under the law, and it's not within your, to me, that's an issue that's not legally before the board. And there might be something else, and I will clarify, after having time to look at the application lists the city of Aiken as an owner and they've been the owner for about a month, and the top of the form is signed by the city manager on behalf of the city, at least on that form.
Not on the original.
The one I have has the signature.
Yeah. And I'm really okay with whatever you're saying.
I just mentioned that because I remember the audience question that.
Right. The one that came on the original packet, not the one in tonight's packet, did not have a signature.
Okay.
Again, I hate that I missed Jason's opportunity to come and clarify it, especially with all the people here.
Right.
We're just about, in this time, the design of this building and whether it's appropriate, but know that I'm so glad that people are here that made the decisions that we got to us, that there are concerns about parking and other things that we don't get to deal with. But in appeals from now on, I just would respectfully request that it's not about somebody did anything wrong, but the procedures to what got us to, got the matter to us need to be clarified a little bit more.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's all.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I'll attempt a motion, if you don't mind. With regard to application CERD 24-001074. This is the project we have at 133 and 141 Newberry Street. I move that we approve the design as submitted, based on the fact that it does incorporate architectural elements that are present on a number of buildings downtown. And we can reference certain pages. I think the first page probably would be page 2, where we identify the downtown district of the Old Aiken Overlay district. Another page we could reference is page 43. Says the addition of new infill construction in the downtown area is welcomed. And I think we had a member of the public state that, that having more people working downtown is good. New construction in the downtown area respect the architectural traditions that have preceded it. Several other pages I can reference. The typical facades on the street should be broken down into a series of bays. This is on page 45, section 3.2. Again, new buildings, downtown commercial. And that is a fact that they have, I'm not sure what the overall length of the building is, but it is broken down into segments that sort of replicate the downtown shop bays, the intervals that you see. And this is page 44 and 43. I could continue to go through the fact that it has comments even in terms of equipment should be screened by solid building elements and not by equipment screens. That's on page 47. This is again section 3.2. The fact that we say on page 48, use of brick as the primary building material is encouraged. I think that they, again, are integrating brick, which we see a lot of. They've actually gone further to note that, and I had noticed how many of our cornices are brick. That's a little bit out of the ordinary, but they're still there in most cases. So we have that on page 48, referencing the type of materials that we see downtown, and they've integrated that in. The same thing we might say as far as the spacing, page 50. It speaks of piers. I think this is probably in the commercial part where we have brick piers that are structure, and in a way their colonnade is exposing the first floor structure,
that supports the second and third floor. So it,
Still on your motion, right?
I am still on my motion. And I can stop, I can go on. There's about 20 more pages. No, I'm about got it. Main entrance to a building should be emphasized to delineate a clear point of arrival. I think we see that. We also see something that is interesting over here in page, this is on page 55, where it says first story of multi-story structures may be set back a maximum of 12 feet. And so that there is I guess a distinction here with our downtown commercial that buildings do need to maintain a facade. And we've had some unfortunate situations where architects thought, oh, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a space here and tear down the Western Carolina Bank and move the building back so we have an open space. We all know where that is. And that was a really unfortunate decision that at the time felt like, well, we'll have some pedestrian space. And it was a real unintended consequence. So I think that I could make a point, in terms of the fact that we're in the downtown commercial. We probably do need a facade. They've got, I'm wrapping up. We've got the overall frontage, I guess probably a third of it is open, it's parking, necessarily parking. And then 2/3 of it is building. So it does have a break, but you have to be careful about buildings being set back too much in our downtown.
Okay.
And that's my motion.
All right.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Corey wanted to be recognized.
Hmm?
I just, before we go on to ask for a second, I just wondered if it would be appropriate for the board to have a little discussion
Oh, yeah.
about the motion to approve. First of all, I have no problem with the motion at all. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Law said. Secondly, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with the design of the building or what we've discussed tonight. I think we've had giant steps toward getting a building that is appropriate in many, many ways. My concern is procedure and the timing. What I'm concerned about is that this hearing on this particular application was meant to be held on May 7th. And it was just recently changed, just literally days ago, to tonight. We received, we just received the new design and all of the information tonight for the first time. This is a very, very important application. This is an important building. It's the first building of its type. It's a multi-use building in size and scope. And it's that's the first, and it's a new building. It's infill in a historic preservation district. And for that reason, I think it's appropriate for the public to have a little bit more time to consider this. Just consider this design and consider the context, because that's what's been talked about tonight, is the context, the scale in this particular neighborhood. And I just think it would be appropriate. I would if we could actually amend your motion to say and put a date on it. We can't do it in May because I think it's too soon, but perhaps June. Put it, that we vote on it and postpone it to June. But I just think it's important to give the public time to review it and give it good consideration, and also for those board members who, are new, to be able to ensure that this board gets it right. We need to get it right. And so this is more about process than it is with substance. And so that's my suggestion.
Yes, since she's amending your motion, yeah.
Well, I'm just asking it to consider it.
I understand the reason you are, so that we don't appear to be rushing this
Exactly, the city owns
in the
it.
public view.
Yeah.
But in fact, you all can see there's a page of reworking that the architects have, no questions asked. They just began to go to see what they could do, and even changing the cornice to brick, I think that they've worked on, I'm sorry.
Can I address that issue? actually.
Yeah, you
We
do it
have-
after I finish, and
Okay.
then I'll know,
As long
she'll
as
know
you
why.
stay on that issue, I can address it.
Well, okay. I'm just saying, they've reworked it and reworked it. I'm not sure what another month will accomplish.
I'm not-
It may look, it may have an appearance of being more open and all, but I think to have they've reworked it quite a bit.
No, I understand that, and as I said, my suggestion has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the architects did or did not rework it a lot. I'm not suggesting that they should rework it. What I am suggesting is that because it has been very short notice, it was not, I think, appropriate notice to the public that we were gonna be voting on it tonight. We were supposed to be voting on it on Tuesday. And so I'm just thinking it would give the public more time to review it, more time to walk around town to make sure they're comfortable with it, and then we then we vote on it at the very next. We could do it on Tuesday as planned, but the problem is that we have a bare quorum, so that if, I don't think that, and I also don't think that Tuesday is important. I mean, gives us enough time. For one of the things, for instance, everybody's been talking about is the scale of it. In that neighborhood, I think that a site visit would be important, and we don't even have time to do. We didn't have time to do that because the voting was moved up, and I just think that we've got to cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure we get it right. But this is a board consideration. This is just my personal feeling. Again, it has nothing to do with the substance of it. At all. I think we've made giant steps in the right direction. I just think that it would behoove this board to be able to give the public more time and for consideration.
And is there a rush? Is there a rush in the process?
Well, Madam Chair Lady, all the legal requirements for the meeting have been met. And these materials were posted online for access. And it really is no different than a regular meeting.
Well, it is because we did not receive the meeting minutes from our previous meeting.
Right. You talking about the work session minutes?
Yes,
Okay.
from our previous review of your design,
Right.
we did not receive the minutes, so we don't know if everything has been addressed.
Okay. Well, all I was saying is that legal requirements have been met, and except for the one item you said, everything else has been provided, would have been provided at the other meeting, and the time, it would have been posted about the same time as they were for this meeting. So, and I'm not trying to disagree, I'm just trying to give you the facts on that. And coming at the conclusion of a public hearing, it's a little challenging to do since we've had the meeting and had all these people here to do it again. There's also a 30-day requirement for dealing with applications in the ordinance. And it would not, I'm not sure where it would end, but that time is running. So, but that's just the background for the board to decide what it wants to do. But there is a motion, and
So,
we need to deal with the motion one way or another.
so should we vote on the motion without the amendment and then vote on the motion with the amendment?
I don't, if the amendment is to delay the decision, that's,
Yeah, right.
it would have to be a motion to continue the matter, and that's not on the table. What's on the table is a motion made by Mr. Law to approve with verbose reasons. And so the next thing would be to find out whether or not there's going to be a second.
And there was a second, actually.
I second that motion. I second that motion.
And so the board needs to decide whether to take action on that or someone makes another motion that would take precedence.
So we should act on that since there was a second.
Unless somebody else makes another motion that would take precedence over.
Do you have a comment?
Well, my concern is, if I'm hearing all of it correctly, if the motion is to approve, and if it doesn't pass, then I'm not saying yay or nay. I'm just trying to lay the land.
Then it's a year.
Yeah, and I don't want that to happen either. I'm just trying to be, it's been frustrating. If I can can I just have a personal comment? It has been frustrating for those who was just put on this board less than 40 days ago that we have had 2 or 3 specially called meetings about just this project. And at the work sessions, I'm not afraid to say, how did we get here? That's why I've asked from the beginning, how do we get here? And I'm not judging, I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm just saying procedurally, lay it out there. Let's be transparent how it comes about. These are all people I know, they're my friends. Let's just, for public's sake, and for the sake of all the citizens, let's just put it out there. And this was the city's property, and I am concerned ethically what happened there. My original application was not signed, that came on the first meeting. I'm just gonna, it was not signed. And if it is or isn't signed isn't the issue, but there are 2 owners listed, and nobody had anything related to that. I just think we all deserve better, to do better for each other, so that I can say, I know this was done right. And to have specially called meetings about a project that got pushed, and for those of us who are brand new, there's been no training. There's lots of concerns about how we're doing what we're doing. And I just think the world needs to know it so that we can all be much more respectful about how we do what we do for each other. And that the applications that come to the Design Review Board, especially when they're city projects, don't need to be hurried, but they do need to have the appropriate documentation, the procedural background, not to say it's wrong, just to give it to us. And I know Jason was going to and got shut down. So, but that's important for everyone, and it needs to be documented. And I'm really not sure what I want to do, because I look out here and everyone's going, we're where we're supposed to be. Vote on it, Barbara. But I am really concerned that we all come to an understanding, especially us, the new people here. And I don't want it to be denied tonight, because that would serve no purpose. So that's what I'm saying.
So do you have a motion? Do you have a?
I have frustration, and so that is not a motion. I need you to know. That's why I might be out of order. I just think it's important for us to clear the air.
Madam Chairman, I didn't mean to start this, this kind of a discussion, although I think it's important to have it. And I want to reiterate that my most important concern is that I think that this is a very important building, and it's a new building. It's new infilled. It is in the downtown commercial district. It is owned by the city. And for that reason, it has garnered a lot of public attention. And my concern is that given the short notice about when we got the new information, and then we have very, very short notice that it was changed from the 7th to tonight. I just don't know whether it's given the public enough time to be able to have the ability to really consider it, and be able to come back to us with, some ideas or not ideas. But I just thought if we had a little bit more time before we voted on it, it would be important. Having said that, I do not have a problem with the substance. And I also don't think it would prejudice the applicant if we were to vote on it in June. Now, if there's a legal reason that it might, then I need to know that, because I wouldn't want that to happen, but,
It would be
that's my main concern.
It'd be, if I may speak,
Yes.
and if you need to tell me to stop speaking, please do. I'm told that a lot at home, so. The deadline would be 30 days from the date that there was a complete application, and that was a couple of weeks ago, I think. I'm just guessing at that right now because I don't know. But just so the record is complete and not to be argumentative, we did have a special hour and a half work session and allowed comments. And I realized there have been changes, but all that was in the newspapers. And then, of course, there have been articles in the newspaper about this meeting. And since the work session, we've had very few, if any, comments from the public. And I think the couple that we had were supportive, I think. So I don't want to, I think it's to be fair and complete. There has been a lot of publicity about this and a lot of public notice. And I'm not debating when you got your package or when it was online. So all of that has happened. If we have another meeting, we may have to start from scratch all over again and go through all of this. Because if we have new people come, then we have to go through the whole thing again, in my opinion, to have a complete record, because they wouldn't have been here to hear this. So I'm trying not to be argumentative. I'm trying just to give.
Oh, I don't think you're being argumentative. I mean, I actually was asking you for your opinion on this, yeah.
Complete picture. If you do want to consider something else, I may have to ask for a recess so I can research the proper procedure to perhaps accomplish what has been discussed. It's too important to try to do it off the cuff.
Newspaper article, I believe, that I was looking at today was dated March 7th or something, front page, on the building. It had not this exact facade, but it was a 3-story brick building. May have had storefront on it. So it's been out in the public for, I believe we met with the architect at the March work session. Is that right, on that date? Can you tell us the date? It's been 30 days.
March 28th was our last work session, our special called work session.
Okay, with them.
Yes.
So, a month.
And, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't hear a lot of public here saying we need more. We just think, where in the world did y'all come up with this? Why is this being done this way? I thought, the criteria that was set out, the selection of this time a local architect, I think that's been a plus. They grew up around here and they know what buildings in Aiken look like.
Yep.
I'll say one more thing and I'll be quiet. Is when you look at their renderings, if you could just start showing those renderings, I'm talking about the renderings, color renderings.
There you go.
And if you just keep scrolling, that's a good example. It really doesn't. To me, a goal for an architect working in a historic district especially is it not look like a new building. Even though Mr. Rinaldini would give permission to do a little more glass, it looks like it could, you might ride by and say, oh, I don't remember that building. So I think they've met some goals here that are really kind of critical in the downtown. That it's not an outlandish design. It's based on a very specific program.
But I think that has been satisfied. I think.
Yeah. Y'all are one about.
Pat is talking about the procedure.
I know, but the procedure, to me, that's not. I know we've got attorneys down here that want to know about the procedure, but I've got guidelines, and I'm not told to research who owns the building and when the title transferred and all that. I'm required to look at our guidelines and does it meet them and not, beat them over the head because something wasn't turned in. Do you know what I mean? I don't think procedures are, it may be Jim's responsibility, but I don't think it's ours personally.
Can I make one comment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody's talked about, and McDonald talked about the newspaper article. I might not ever say this again, so you can take notes if you like, Christian, that it's one of the, as a former journalist, I thought it was a good article, and it really brought forth all of it, including the time it takes to walk from someplace. Somebody, one of our earlier speakers made a comment, and I think you said it was the longest walk was, 8 minutes, something like that. And I think that's probably more realistic. So I don't trust Google when it comes to directions, so we'll leave it at that. But I think the public has gotten a good and certainly an organization like our Historic Preservation Society, a lot of people in there that have a lot of vested interest in the community have been aware of what's going on, and we've heard good comments from that. And it's one of these situations that we run into where you have the community, an organization like our historic group, and our architects and the city and the DRB all working together to kind of come up with something that works for our community and that is an asset. I mean, a real asset. And this young lady that spoke earlier about bringing business to downtown, survival of downtown is going to rest with the growth of downtown in a very measured and a good way. And I think that this is going to help that quite a bit. So my hat's off to everybody that worked on this to put it together, and also our Aiken Corp group that was spearheading all this, and I appreciate all that. But say that I think it's a win-win for the community, for the National Lab, and certainly for our businesses downtown. Thank you.
Well, there is a motion on the table. It has been second. All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed?
Okay.
So we.
I appreciate your candor and sharing your thoughts with us, because, it's important what you say, even if it doesn't result in action immediately, but it is appreciated and taken seriously.
I do appreciate that. And again, as I said before, it had nothing to do with the substance. I was just concerned as, I thought it was very short notice.
Yeah.
And that's part of the procedure, and I just wanted to make sure that we were covering our bases, because this is an important application, and I think going forward, we need to look at notice.
Yeah.
Short notice.
So
and
ma'am.
what we need to look at notice and what is reasonable
So,
notice.
ma'am, can I just?
From a legal point of view.
Yes.
All right. One thing I would like to say, ma'am, Miss Pat, is that in the past week or so, I saw this at least 5 times, and if the place to hang out, if you all don't know, it's go on Facebook. Lord, you would get all the opinions of everyone. Well, you can use my page. But I really thank you.
And we'll revisit procedure. We also don't want to punish an applicant because of our procedure. Oh, I know.
Yeah. Well, Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second? I'll second that. Adjourn.